All right. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back from hopefully what is a great lunch or was a great lunch. Super stoked to get rocking and rolling. No Slayer while you wait. New shirt. Yes. In all fairness, I have to point this out. So yes, we had our first official wardrobe change. However, this wardrobe change was due to me spilling some of my lunch on my prior shirt. And so in all fairness, this was not an official wardrobe change. But there you go. And so, okay. So we are going to rock and roll. I also apologize for in South Florida. It's storming here and we are notorious for losing power. And so the storm is passing though, so we should be okay. But that's why those of you who had to log back on, we got cut off, had to wait for the power to come back on, all that jazz. But we are back in action. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go right over here. I'm going to share my screen and we are going to, it's snowing, not quite snow, Edward. It's probably 85 degrees outside here. And so, let me see here. So yeah, you guys are so funny. All right. So we are going to now go into research and decisions. And so just want to make sure, as always, you guys can see my screen. A-okay. Yes. Cool. Awesome. And so we're going to talk about research questions that you need to answer before you start writing and decisions to be made. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of the morning session, I'm not going to go into, every single detail here as it relates to research and decisions. I felt the need to include this in here, as well as some of the other foundational principles, because so much of what we're going to be talking about tomorrow is based on stuff that we identify and uncover and get from this process. So keep in mind as I go through this, that if there are specific questions that you have deeper than what it is that I'm covering here, if it's an urgent question, you could pop it into the little Q&A section. If not, hold it for Monday and I will answer it. I want to give you a strong, though, overview of the essentials of the research and decision making here. And I'm going to start off with this, and I say this time and time again every time I talk about research or examination. Examination is step one of stage number one of the E5 method. Examination is the least enjoyable part of the campaign copywriting engineering process. It's the most tedious, it's the least fun, but it's where the gold is found. At the end of the day, most of what it is that we come up with in terms of ideas, hooks, themes, angles, pain points to alleviate, benefit statements to make, come from the research phase, come from the examination phase. In other words, the reality is that very little comes from within here for you. It's all out there. Granted, we're going to put stuff into your head. We're going to talk about developing ideas and all that kind of stuff in just a little bit, but it's all in the research. It's all in really what you understand about the marketplace, the environment that we're about to go into, or that we're going to be speaking to. You have to understand something, and this is really important, that you're not talking to a blank canvas when you are talking to a prospect. In other words, they're not coming into your campaign as a blank canvas. They're coming into your campaign with existing fears, concerns, desires, ambitions, emotions, as well as beliefs, experiences, viewpoints, and all of that stuff. Kind of it impacts the way that they receive and process your message. And so you need to understand who you are talking to and what their perspective is, what they've seen, what they haven't seen, what they heard, what they haven't heard. It really all begins, as you've heard me say already, with the prospect. And so this is critical, not fun, but critical, necessary, right? Like essential to what it is that you do. And I'll tell you that the best copywriters in the world were all and are all research fiends, research fanatics. The majority of their time especially when they're writing campaigns for new products, for things in a new marketplace, not their own stuff. The majority of their time is invested into the research and examination, right? Not the writing. Everything you need to know to be able to craft a compelling message starts with the research. And so with that, let's talk about the examination triad. And so I'm going to sum this up very quickly because this is covered in tremendous detail in the E5 method stuff here. That's a great way to put it, Lynn. Excuse me. The gold is elsewhere, and we're just prospectors who know what gold looks like and how to shape it. You're absolutely right. That is so well said. And so we are just looking for it. It's out there. There are three things that we look at. There are three things that we examine, and we examine them in this specific order. So the first one is prospects. And I'm going to break down and give you kind of a high level overview of exactly what it is that we're looking for when we are examining prospects. But we start with the prospects. This is your audience. This is who you are talking to in your marketing campaign. After we do the examination on prospects, then we go over to competitors. And we're going to talk about the two areas that we look at when we look at competitors. There are really two core things that we are going to use for the crafting of our copy. And then after we've examined prospects and then competitors, then we go over and we examine the product. Now, when I say examine the product, I'm talking about, yes, even your own product. You're writing for your own stuff, your own product, your own course, your own training, your own agency, whatever it may be. We're still going to go through the examination stage as if you were a consultant brought in, as if you were a copywriter brought in to write copy for somebody else's product. So just because it's your own, I don't want you to assume that you know everything that you need to know, that you're aware of everything that you need to be aware of. You still need to go through the full examination process for the product. So we do it in this order: 1, 2, 3. So let's talk about the prospects. So giving you this high level overview. So of ultimately what it is that we are looking for. We're looking for, number one, problem identification. In other words, we want to identify the problem that they have, or the problems that they have that we can solve. And we want to look at which is the most pressing problem, which is the most urgent problem, which is tied with the most amount of need, the most severity. And ideally, that's the one that we're going to go after. But we start by identifying what is the problem that we are going to solve. So what is the problem that the prospect has, that they see that they have, that they're aware that they have, that they want to resolve on whatever level that we're going to solve for them. So you got to start by identifying the problem that they have, that they know they have, that we're going to solve for them in our copy. Next is we have to identify their wants and desires. And what I mean by this in this particular context is, as it relates to the problem, what do they want to see happen? What is the ideal solution that they're looking for? What is the outcome, the transformation, the result that they're looking for? What do they want to be experiencing that they're not experiencing right now? What are they experiencing right now that they don't want to be experiencing after their problem is resolved? And so we have to identify or understand at least what are their wants and their desires. We have to know this. You have to know this because right off the bat, you should see that, right? How do you craft a compelling marketing message? How do you craft compelling copy if you don't know the problem that your prospect has, that they want solved, that you can solve? And how do you know what it is to say in your copy, or what do you say in your copy if you don't know the wants and desires that your prospect has? At the end of the day, remember, you heard me say this, right? And I want to drive this home. I want you to get this. At the end of the day, ultimately what we're doing is we're really, again, we're telling them that we've got a different and superior way to solve their problem, to give them the wants and desires that they have so that they can feel the way that they want to feel. Right? That's ultimately what we're doing. And so unless we know what it is that the problem is, unless we know their wants and desires, unless we know the emotions that they currently have and ultimately what they want to have, well, how do we know that we're going to resonate with them? As it relates to emotions and feelings, there are two things that we're ultimately looking for here under this. So as it relates to the problem, what are the emotions and feelings that they can have? right? Like, what are the emotions and feelings that they have? And what I would tell you in this context, just to kind of go a little bit deeper here, is don't get so caught up in, have I named the exact emotion? Like, is it anxiety? Is it, is it disappointment, or is it disappointment, or is it frustration? There are so many gray areas in terms of emotions. There's so many emotions that kind of cross over, that blend in together. It's not this black and white emotional profile that your prospects have. Really, what I want you to kind of come to is it a negative emotion? Like, or is it more negative bent? Is it more fear based, or is it more hope based? Is it more greed based? Is it more kind of positive, right? What are the emotion? What's the emotion that they have coming into the campaign? So as it relates to the problem, is it an unfulfilled desire and they're hopeful, they're excited, they're ambitious, they're greedy, so to speak? Or is it more of this unresolved distress where they're concerned, they're scared, they're anxious, they're frustrated, that sort of thing? And so I want to understand what the emotions are that they have, and like, what's the core emotion? How would I sum up the core emotion that they're experiencing right now? Don't be so concerned with, like, how do I know if it's, again, disappointment or frustration? Like, it's not about being able to name the exact emotion. It's about understanding the overall emotional state that they are in. And then, of course, you want to have an understanding of, well, what are the emotions that they'll experience and that they want to experience after they experience their wants and desires. So when the problem is solved and alleviated, and they're experiencing the benefits, the outcomes, the result, the transformation, the change, all of that, and all the ancillary benefits that come with that big overarching change, how are they going to feel, right? And so we want to understand that. Now, you can look at these three just right off the bat, and you could start to recognize, of course, in what it is that I just said, that it's important to understand both sides of the equation so that we can present and provide contrast, right? Like, in other words, another way to think about this, and this is something that I talk about in E5 coaching, is the before, the now and after state. So right now they're dealing with the problem. And they're dealing with their problem. Their life looks a certain way. They're experiencing certain things. They're not experiencing certain things. What it is that they're experiencing or not experiencing is making them feel a certain way. It's causing pain, certain pain points for them, right? That's where they are right now. They have this overall emotional state about the now state. And then there's the after, right? And the after is post problem being solved. So after the problem is being solved, after the problem is solved or relieved, now what does their life look like? What is part of their life? What pain don't they have anymore? What pleasure do they have? All those things. And how do they now feel, right? After. How do they feel? So we've got this now state, and then we've got this after state. All right. And in the middle is the problem being solved. That understanding that what it is that I just said is where the contrast comes from. The contrast comes from, you're dealing with this right now. You no longer have to deal with this. You no longer have to experience X. You no longer have to be frustrated by Y, because you'll experience LMNOP, all this good stuff. Darkness, light, darkness, light, darkness, light, contrast. This is where it comes from. And again, in order to convey that we've got the right solution for them, we need to understand these things. You also need to understand any potential beliefs that they have that could color the message. In other words, that can taint the message that you give them. Remember, you're not dealing with a blank canvas. In some markets, in some instances, there are certain beliefs that the market has that is important to recognize. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples in just a second. You have to recognize, are there any beliefs that if I immediately disagree with them could cause them to view me as not being credible? Are there any beliefs that if I contradict them early on could cause them to say he or she doesn't know me? They don't understand. They're not me. They're not one of me. They don't get me. They're not right. This is not like, there's a disconnect here. Is there any belief that they have that if I contradict early on could make them say, wrong, absolutely wrong, off the mark. And so let me give you an example. So one of my clients is the Agora companies, and I've worked with a number of different affiliates over the years, or different entities over the years. And in the majority of the affiliates, the majority of folks, the avatar, and I kind of hate using the term because of the connotation that comes with it, but the avatar, their audience was really made up largely of 55 plus year old white men who are conservative politically, right? They used to refer at Agora Financial to their avatar as Grandpa Kurt. And they used to have this little doll that to represent who they were talking to. Well, you know, right off the bat that they're talking to primarily conservative, politically conservative people that, right, for the most part, right, wrong, or indifferent, dislike the Clintons, dislike Obama, dislike Biden, blah, 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 blah. And so if we opened up a campaign, a financial campaign, talking about how great, you know, the Clintons are now making a move that's going to allow us to profit in a big way. And we're positioning the Clintons as great, you know, valuable, blah, 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 blah. Well, we're going to go against their belief. We're going to immediately butt up against this perception that they have that that's bad. I don't want anything to do it. Like, if you tell me how to exploit their wealth, if you tell me how to get over on them, if you tell me how to capitalize on an opportunity because of their mistake, now I'm in. But if you try to align me with them, I'm out. Same thing with the alternative health space. The deeper you go into the alternative health space, the more belief there is, again, right, wrong, or indifferent, that the pharmaceutical industry is evil, right? Is evil. This is where it becomes like the common enemy, you know, like is evil, is bad. And so if we say something early on, like this is, you know, this is thanks to the hard work that the people over at Johnson & Johnson did. Well, boom, they're immediately like, no, not good. Those are bad. Those people are bad. Right. And so, but if we opened up with more of, let's say, just as an example, the idea that here's an opportunity to, you know, to leverage, you know, one of the evil patents that Pfizer has to get the natural remedy that you need for gout or whatever. Now they're interested, right? Because they see those folks as bad. Same thing. You could go into general, you know, into other markets and know that there are little beliefs that you just have to be aware of in some spaces, like attorneys are shady, right, wrong, or indifferent, right? Like that's, some people have that, you know, belief. You don't necessarily think of attorneys and immediately think of the most ethical people, right, wrong, or indifferent. It's just this thing. Some people think of, there are folks that think, you know, chiropractic, and they think of chiropractor, they think of painful or risky or not a legitimate doctor or something like that. And so my point in sharing that with you is you just have to be aware of, are there beliefs that I need to be aware of so that I don't contradict them? Are there beliefs that I need to make sure I don't contradict? And are there beliefs that I can leverage, that I can use to show the prospect, right? But that we're the same, that we feel the same way, without coming out and saying we feel the same way? Are there beliefs that I need to be aware of that we can use in the campaign to show them, I get you. We're on the same team. We feel the same way. We have the same worldview, right? Because that's important. You have to understand that, you know, people like to spend money with people that they like and trust, and people like people that are like them. And so, right, wrong, or indifferent, right? People like people that are like them. And so, right, like depending on your stance on the vaccine, yay or nay, if you were yay and somebody was really outspoken, and it came through outspoken against it, and they were, you know, blah, 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 you may be a lot less inclined to buy. And same thing on the other side of the coin. And so my point is, you're not dealing with a blank canvas. You've got to recognize who is the individual that I'm talking to? What are their wants and desires, right? What's the problem that I'm going to solve for them? What are the emotions and feelings that they have coming in here? What are the emotions and feelings that they ultimately want to have that they're likely buying through the wants and desires? And what are, if any, the beliefs that they have that could impact what it is that I say, or how they view what it is that I say. And then finally, and this one we could also spend a whole bunch of time on, but we're not going to spend a whole bunch of time on, is awareness level. And awareness level really originates from Eugene Schwartz in Breakthrough Advertising. I've said it before, Breakthrough Advertising is the absolute best marketing book ever published. It's the only book in the library that I have 2 copies of. And this was prior to my buddy Brian Kurtz, republishing the book when it was, selling for $700 or $800 or whatever it was. I picked up a second copy just in case something happened to my first copy. But Gene Schwartz talks about awareness levels. And this goes back to, there are 5 levels of awareness. Awareness in this context is how aware is your prospect, the people that you're talking to, the segment of your market that you're talking to, how aware are they of the problem, and how aware are they of the different types of solutions out there, and you and your solution, and so on, because their awareness level is going to determine how we open up, how we begin to engage with them. Right. And so for time purposes, I'll give you this quick breakdown that there are 5 levels of awareness. At the bottom is unaware. At the top is most aware. Think of unaware as they're not, the problem isn't top of mind for them. They're not aware of a problem. They're not thinking about the problem, and therefore they're not looking for a solution. And then one level up, you've got problem aware. Problem aware are the people that are aware that they have a problem, but they haven't yet decided on a solution. They're not aware of maybe which is the best course of action to take. So let's say in South Florida, got a lot of an older population down here, a lot of older guys that golf. There's golf courses everywhere you go. They golf and they've got no back pain, and therefore they're not looking for a back pain solution. Then you've got one level up, right? And that is guys got back pain. Golf is one of the worst things for lower back. You've got flexion and rotation at the same time, no good. And so, right. So now you got some guys with back pain, and all they are is aware they got back pain. They're not yet aware of the different solutions. They haven't looked into the different solutions. They haven't chosen a solution that they want, or a category of solution, or anything like that. They're just aware that they've got low back pain. Then one level up, you've got solution aware. And these are people that are now, they're aware that they've got low back pain, and they're now starting to look at, do I want to go to a chiropractor, or do I want to go to a massage therapist? And so they're trying to decide between the solution options, right? And so back pain, chiropractor, massage, which is better, which is safer, which is easier, which is quicker, which is cheaper, whatever. And then one level up, you've got product aware. And product aware is, all right, I know I got back pain. I know the different solutions out there, the options out there. I want to go to a chiropractor. And now I am looking for the best chiropractor in West Palm Beach, Florida. Right. And so that's product aware. I've chosen the product category, and now I'm looking for the best option within that category. And then one level up is most aware. So unaware, problem aware, solution aware, product aware, most aware. Your market is made up of everybody in that pyramid. That is your universe, right? That is your universe. So that right, it's not a matter of which one of those is your market. It's a matter of that pyramid, people in that pyramid at those 5 different levels of awareness make up your marketplace. Now it's a matter of understanding, who are you going to be targeting? Who are you going to be targeting? What level of awareness are you going to be targeting? Are you going to go after the unaware segment, the guys that are 55, 65, 70 years old plus, that are golfing, that don't have any back pain, and now you're going to try to make them aware of, let's say, your back is at risk, and blah, 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 blah. Or are you going to talk to the people that do have pain, they're problem aware, and that's it? They haven't decided yet between different solutions. Are you going to talk to the guys that are, or the gals that are, they've got back pain, now they're solution aware, they're debating between chiropractic and massage, let's just say? Are you going to talk to the people that they've decided they want chiropractor, and now they're going to look for the best chiropractor in your area, you have to decide what level of awareness you are going to go after, because that's going to change the copy that we write, because we have to start where the prospect is. You have to understand what they're aware of, what they know, what they think, what they've already accepted, what they already believe as true as it relates to the problem and the solutions out there, to know where to begin. Right? To know where to begin. And you're going to see this carried over tomorrow when we talk about different ways of opening up the campaign. We're going to talk a little bit more about this, but you have to know their awareness level. Again, the better you can know your prospect, the easier this game of copy becomes. You have to be able to speak their language. You have to be able to speak to where they're at right now, what they see right now, what they believe right now, what they're thinking right now, what they're aware of right now. You have to know what they know, what they don't know, what they've already accepted, what they haven't accepted, right? And so it's a matter of choosing which one of those 5 levels of awareness you are going to target. Once you've decided that, and there's pluses and minuses to depending on where you go, right? Like the higher on the pyramid you go, the easier it becomes to convert. The smaller the universe, though, the lower on the pyramid you go, the harder it is to convert. But the bigger the universe, there's a lot of different elements in here that I talk about in E5 coaching. But for now, I just want you to understand that there are different levels of awareness, and you need to know what they are. And you need to know which one you are ultimately going to target, because it's going to change the way we present our copy, what we say and where we say it and how we say it. Now, as it relates to the prospect problem, this goes back to a question I cannot remember, and I apologize for that somebody asked earlier. Or somebody mentioned earlier about, and I said it is, I mentioned that it was assuming the known cause. And so I want you to listen to me here, because this is going to, this should be extremely valuable for you guys. Oh, David. Okay, awesome. And so the symptom versus the problem. So you want to avoid the mistake of assuming the known cause. And what this really means, or what this is based on, is this: that most prospects think the symptoms are the problem. Most prospects are not aware of what the actual underlying problem is. So when most prospects think of the problem, what most prospects associate with the problem are the symptoms, not the actual underlying root cause. And so that's an important point for you to understand. And let me say it again, that most prospects, when they think of the problem, they are really thinking of the symptoms of the problem, not the underlying problem itself. They're not thinking about the root cause. They're thinking about the symptoms, because to most prospects, and I want you to listen to me, most prospects don't know the root cause. They just know the symptom. And so the mistake of assuming the known cause is when a marketer in their copy tries to talk about alleviating the problem, but what the copywriter or marketer does is they talk about the root cause. So, right, they in the headline, they'll talk about like the root cause, how to alleviate the root cause, or how to fix the root cause, assuming that the prospect knows that that's their problem. But to the prospect, their problem is the symptoms. Most prospects do not know the root cause. And so you, as a marketer, have to resist that. You have to be aware of that. You've got to recognize that, and we're going to talk a little bit about this. I think there's a slide that I included in here. I didn't take it out on avoiding the curse of knowledge. You may understand that that's a symptom, that it's coming from an underlying root cause. And therefore, what you want to do is you want to say to the prospect in your copy, here's how to solve this root cause. But to the prospect, that's a disconnect, because in their mind, they don't even see that as a problem. They're not even aware, right? What they associate as the problem is the symptoms. What we want to present to them when we talk about solving their problem, what we want to focus on are the symptoms, not the root problem. not the root problem. Don't assume that your prospect knows the root problem. Assume that they consider the problem the symptoms, or the symptoms the problem. And so we want to focus on symptoms, and we want to focus on the pain from the symptoms, not the root problem. That is critical. I know that this is only one slide, but it is essential because I see this mistake made all the time, right? And so you look at, let's say, something like the E5 method, right? And you take something like, let's say, the big marketing idea, and excuse me, and the big marketing idea solves the attention problem, let's say, how to get attention, getting attention in a marketplace. Well, the mistake would be, right, and we know, let's say, let me take a step back and say that the reason why majority of people don't get attention in their marketplace, why they can't get clicks on ads, why they can't get emails opened and that sort of thing, let's say, right, is because they've got a weak, run-of-the-mill, ordinary idea, hook, or theme for their campaign, right? And so to us, fixing the problem is how to make sure that you have a big marketing idea, or how to make sure you don't have a weak, run-of-the-mill, ordinary marketing idea. But that is the root cause. That's not what the prospect sees as their problem. The prospect doesn't know that that is the cause of a lack of attention. To the prospect, the lack of attention, the lack of clicks on ads, the lack of engagement on their ads, the lack of traffic to their site, that is the problem. And so when we are starting our copy and we're addressing the problem up front, we want to address the symptoms, not the root cause. Now, you'll see that we can always go into the root cause in the copy, right? When we explain how we're going to solve the problem, right? Like how we're going to solve the problem, or the symptoms that the prospect sees, right? That we can, in the copy, we can explain to them that this problem really comes from this cause. And when you solve this cause, right, then you alleviate this problem. And here is the best, most effective way to solve this root cause. And when you solve this root cause with this best, most effective way, you get the attention, you get the blah, 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 you get the engagement, you get the clicks, you get the visitors, and you ultimately get the sales, right? And so we can address the root cause, which we're going to talk about in just a second, as a matter of fact, in your copy. But when it comes to getting attention, when it comes to early on in the campaign, conveying to the prospect that we're going to solve, I have a different way to solve your problem, we don't jump to the root cause. We start where the prospect is at, which is the symptoms. To your prospect, the symptoms are the problem. So when you talk about solving their problem, you talk about solving their symptoms, right? You're not going to use the word symptoms early on. You're going to talk about, this is how to solve this. This is how to overcome this, the symptom or symptoms that they're dealing with. And that's a very important distinction. This is a mistake that I see made all the time. You cannot get too close, to the topic. Remember, you heard me say early on, you've got to learn to step away. You've got to learn to step away, and you've got to learn to see through your prospect's eyes. Everything is about what they see, what they believe, what they feel, what they think. It's not what you know, it's what they know. It's not what you think, it's what they think. It's not what you believe, it's what they believe. All the things that you think, believe, are motivated by, feel, experience are meaningless, absolutely meaningless. It's only about the prospect. Next is there, and this is a more advanced strategy that you're going to hear me, that we're going to talk a little bit about tomorrow. But this is there an unaddressed root problem which your solution resolves? An unaddressed root problem. So what do I mean by an unaddressed root problem? So an unaddressed root problem is, the way that I would define this is, it is the real underlying reason or cause of the superficial problem that's being focused on. And so meaning, like, ultimately what we're talking about here is there a deeper underlying problem that others in the marketplace, competitors, other products, other vendors aren't addressing. They're not dealing with this real underlying root problem. And this real underlying root problem is the true cause of the symptoms, right? The quote unquote root cause, or the superficial root cause that people are dealing with, is still one step away from the real underlying root cause, or the unaddressed root problem. And so, right, like what we're ultimately looking for is there a root problem, a real root problem that nobody else in the marketplace is addressing, that you could present in your copy as, right, like this is the real problem that you are having. And right, and unless you solve this problem, right, that you will never alleviate the symptoms, you'll never alleviate the pain. While most people are, right, most people are trying to fix these symptoms, right, with this, right? But the real problem is this. It's almost like, let me give you an example. I'm going to give you a couple of quick examples. Actually, let me give you a couple of quick examples, and then we'll unpack this a little bit. So I have a client, a client who has a memory supplement, right? It helps with memory, and successful supplement dude, and he shows how memory decline is really the cause of a toxin that is found in multiple households. And that toxin has been proven to be directly linked to declining memory. And right, all of the other courses of action that you might want to take to help with your memory won't do anything if you are still plagued by this toxin in your, which gets into your brain, right? Like, and it goes through like a crazy amount of proof, blah, 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 blah. And so that's an example of an unaddressed root problem, right? Where others are talking about maybe you're lacking nutrients, maybe this, he's saying that no, like the real issue, the real unaddressed root problem is this toxin. And here's evidence and more evidence and more evidence and more proof and more evidence and more support. And unless you get rid of this toxin, right, from your brain, you will continue to see memory decline. Fortunately, there's a way to get rid of this toxin, and here it is, and here's how it works, and here's why it works, and boom, here's an offer for you to get it. And so, right, here's another thing. There is low testosterone. Right. So low testosterone. So there are a lot of, check this out. This should unpack it a little bit more. And then I'm going to give you a deeper example that you can relate to. So there are a lot of people that talk about you may, let's say you're a male, 45 years old or something like that. And so, and you're struggling to build muscle tissue. Well, there are a lot of products out there that talk about the cause, the reason why is low testosterone. And here is a way for you to boost your testosterone naturally. And when you boost your testosterone naturally, here's what happens, right? And here's the benefit of testosterone, right? And so now other people can come along and they can say, yeah, you know, it's low testosterone. We have a different way to boost low testosterone, or a better way to boost low testosterone, or, you know, something like that. But then there's this opportunity, and I want you to envision that this is real. So like this is truthful, and this all comes about through research and examination. So I'm not making anything up here. I'm using this as an example. But there could be evidence out there that shows that it's not low testosterone that is a problem for many men 45 plus, but it is poor cellular uptake, meaning it is the body, the male body, many male bodies tend to become resistant to testosterone as they get older, meaning that it's quite possible you could have a normal testosterone or low testosterone, and simply boosting your testosterone isn't going to fix the problem, because the real underlying root problem is poor cellular uptake of testosterone. And by the way, I just made up poor cellular uptake, right? I have no idea what that means. But right, once you fix poor cellular uptake, once you make the cells more sensitive to testosterone, not only does your testosterone level go up, but even with a lower testosterone level, your body will become more sensitive to testosterone and will reap the benefits of testosterone, therefore allowing you to right? And so the point is that when you have the ability to identify the problem, and then you have the ability to find the unaddressed root problem when there is, and you can't always do this. Like, not every one of you is going to be able to do this, but when you can do this, you've got something, you've got the makings of something potentially great. Because what you're ultimately saying is you're dealing with all these symptoms. You've got all this problem. Most people are going to tell you that this is the problem, but this isn't the problem or the real problem. This is what's causing this, which is leading to this. And here's all the evidence to show you that this is the real problem. And only when you solve this problem, right, do you reap the rewards. And I have a way for you to solve this problem. Here's what it's called. Here's how it works. And here's how you can get it. Now you've created something. That is money. And as a little tease, as a little taste, what you've ultimately done is now you've turned the solving of the unaddressed root problem into a necessity, into a need, not an option. Now you've almost said, right, unless you fix this, nothing else is going to work. Unless you fix this, you could still work on this, right? And you could fix this one part, right? And it doesn't matter. A great example of this is in the world of media buying. When there are a lot of people that say, like they'll talk about, you have a high CPA, right? And so you have a high CPA. Let me show you a different way, a better way to create your ad, high cost per acquisition. And let me show you a better way or a different way to create your ads, right? And I'm going to show you a better way to drive traffic, blah, 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 blah. But the reality is that in most cases, right, it's not the traffic. Like, the reality is they can come up with a better way to drive traffic, a better way to create ads, a different platform to create ads and run ads. That's not the real root problem. The real root problem is that they have an ineffective marketing message, which doesn't convert at a high enough rate. And that's what's causing the high CPA. So while you can improve your ads and find additional platforms, right, and do all those things and scale up your traffic more and more, you're still going to struggle until you fix the underlying real root cause, the unaddressed root problem. And until you fix the unaddressed root problem, right, nothing else is going, everything else becomes a Band-Aid. And so you see how that's money in the bank, right? That's money in the bank when you understand that. And so a great example of this is my good buddy, Rich Schefren. And so those of you that have been around for many, many years may be familiar with, or are likely familiar with, the Internet Business Manifesto. So Rich, I remember when Rich released this. So Rich released this PDF over a decade ago now. And so this PDF, it is a classic. You're absolutely right, Ken. So this PDF launched I believe it was, he launched his original coaching program, did about $3 million. And then over the next 10 months, did like another $7 million in his coaching program. This is this is over 10 years ago. And so it was a different environment than today. But the premise of this, and I want you to follow me here. The premise of this, the idea behind this PDF was about, he was talking to folks that were overwhelmed at the time with a whole bunch of marketing activities. So they were overwhelmed with the idea of starting to embrace social media, the beginning, of social media, and all this stuff, affiliate marketing, legal, compliance, technical content, right? Emails, list building, opt-in, PPC ads, name capture. You can see all the old stuff on here, customer service, fulfillment, testimonial acquisition, blogs, blah, 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 all this stuff. And people were overwhelmed. And what people thought was the problem was, they thought the game was, how do I learn to outsource? Like, how do I learn a system for getting all of this done? right? And so they were ultimately looking for, let's say, how do I outsource or freelance, or right? Like, how do I get all this stuff done? What is the most effective way? Because I'm becoming overwhelmed. I'm ready to throw in the towel on all this stuff. And what Rich said was, ultimately, he presented that that's not the issue. The issue isn't how do you get all of this stuff done. The issue is that you're trying to get all of this stuff done. And by the way, this might sound like, of course, this is normal stuff today. Back then it wasn't. It was unheard of, believe it or not. And he said the problem is that you are operating as an opportunity seeker when you should be operating as a strategic entrepreneur. When you operate as an opportunity seeker, here is what you do. You look for all different ways. You embrace all, ways to build your business, all different marketing strategies, all different marketing tactics. You seize every opportunity out there, every path, every platform, everything. You go after that. And the result is you feel overwhelmed. You feel blah, blah, blah. You're inundated. You got so much to do. You have a never ending to-do list, blah, blah, blah. And then you've got a strategic entrepreneur. And a strategic entrepreneur is somebody that, right, picks and chooses the right moves to make based on their business, based on their model, based on what it is that they are trying to build. And the result of that is X, Y, Z, is no overwhelm, is, a minimal to-do list, is a streamlined business, is a well-oiled machine, is something that's fast growing, and blah, 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 right? And so ultimately, now I want to take a step back for 1 second. Now check this out. Right? So what did Rich do? Number one, he identified the unaddressed root problem. It's not that you've got to figure out, the problem isn't that you've got too many things to do. The problem is that you're operating as an opportunity seeker when you need to be operating as a strategic entrepreneur. So he addressed a root problem that nobody else was talking about, that nobody else was addressing. Number two, that I want you to notice is that he provided contrast, right? And so overwhelm, filled with blah, 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 blah. Over here, right? Strategic entrepreneur, great, phenomenal, life is wonderful, unicorns, candy, rainbows, all that kind of jazz. Next thing, what did he do was he provided the logical support and evidence for that, right? Like he demonstrated, right? Like he demonstrated evidence support for that. The next thing that he did was identity, right? Like basically, who do you want to be? Do you want to be this opportunity seeker? Do you want to be this strategic entrepreneur? Which one more aligns with who you want to be, with how you want to see yourself, with how you want to be viewed? Right. And so, right. He tapped into this identity. Of course, there was the emotional appeal of no longer feeling overwhelmed, of seeing your business grow, of all that stuff. And then the final thing that I want you to understand, and this is where the real magic comes into play with the unaddressed root problem, is that Rich identified an unaddressed, and I want you to listen to me. Okay. Rich identified an unaddressed root problem that he was the only one that had a solution to. So in other words, when he said that your problem is not that, is not figuring out how to do all these things, but your problem is that you're functioning as an opportunity seeker, when the best of the best, the smartest, the most successful entrepreneurs, the ones that aren't feeling the way you are operating like strategic entrepreneurs. And then he got buy-in on that. He sold the prospect on that idea. Then in the end, he offered them the opportunity to become a strategic entrepreneur, to learn how to function as a strategic entrepreneur. And back then, he was the only one doing that. So he showed the marketplace, which is why it did so well. He showed the marketplace that, right, that the problem that they thought they had was just another symptom of the real underlying problem, that he then was the only one that could solve. And it did gangbusters, right? It worked like gangbusters. That's the power of an unaddressed root problem when you can identify it. You can't always identify it, right? But you certainly can spend time looking at your prospect's problems, or the problem that you feel you are going to solve for them, and then ask yourself, right, is there a reason or a cause underneath this? Is there, right? Is there a cause underneath this, right? And that your solution resolves, that we could then talk about, that nobody else is talking about, nobody else is addressing, right? So while a lot of people talk about, for example, with productivity, and they talk about having a time management system, a better way to do your to-do list, a better way to capture your projects, right? Somebody could come along and say that the issue isn't your productivity system. The issue is your mental baggage about productivity. And the reality is that until you identify and alleviate or remove your mental baggage as it relates to productivity, you're going to try all of the productivity systems in the world and you're still going to struggle. Fact is, once you eliminate your baggage, your mental baggage related to productivity, the reality is you could plug in almost any productivity system and you're going to be much more effective with it. And so what I'm going to show you how to do is how to eliminate very specific beliefs that become or are your productivity baggage so that you can blah, 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 blah. And so you see how like that there, but you have to dig for that. You have to look for that. You have to see, is there an unaddressed root problem that you can then leverage in your marketing? If so, great. If not, that's also a-okay. So you don't need an unaddressed root problem. Just if you can find one or identify one, then it can be enormously powerful. Next is, let's talk about competitors. So when you're looking at competitors, there's really only two main categories of things that we are looking at when we're examining competitors. Number one, I just want to know what hooks they're using, themes they're using, marketing ideas they are using. The reason why I want to know their hooks, their themes, their ideas is not because we want to knock it off, not because we want to model it, not because we want to use it, just the opposite. I want to know what our competitors are saying so I know what not to say, right? I want to know what not to say. I want to know, right? Because I want to know what has the market already heard, right? So that I don't duplicate that. I don't want to come into the market. I don't want you to go into the market, and I don't want you to say more of the same. You don't want to say more of the same. You don't want to take the same idea, the same hook, the same theme that somebody else is rolling with, and you don't want to roll it out into your market and just try to say it better. What I'm looking for is different. Remember, different gets attention. Better doesn't always get attention. And so I need to know what are the hooks, the themes, the marketing ideas that competitors are using or even have used recently so that I know what not to do. Then I want to understand what are their promises, the claims, the benefit statements that they are making. Now here, yes, we can model what it is that competitors are saying. So I want to look across the board at the folks that we're competing against. And I want to see what outcome are they promising? What result, what transformation are they promising? What are the benefit claims that they're making, right? And I really want to look for trends and commonalities across the board, right? Because a trend, a commonality, if I see multiple competitors making the same benefit claim, promising the same kind of outcome, the same kind of result, I'm going to note that. I'm going to use that to my advantage. And so I want to understand, I want to look for these trends, these commonalities with my competitors so that I can use them to my advantage. So hook, theme, marketing idea, we want to know that so we know what not to do. Promises, claims, benefits, we want to know that and look for the trends so we know what to do. Next is there any kind of unique selling proposition that they're using? Likely not, but I want to know it. Is there a unique mechanism? What are they claiming is the way that their product or service works to produce the result? The majority of your competitors won't even have any kind of unique mechanism. But if they do, I want to know it, right? I want to understand it, right? Because understand this, I've got to know the mechanisms that competitors are claiming so that when we develop a unique mechanism or identify our unique mechanism, I know that it's unique. If I don't know the mechanisms of competitors, how do I know if I have a unique mechanism or just a mechanism, right? Like maybe it's a mechanism and it's a common mechanism because I don't know what my competitors have and they have the same thing. And so I need to know what is it, if anything, that they are claiming is the reason why their product or service works. Next is I want to understand their offer components. So what you could say here is that if we do this, let's do this, how do I do this? 1 second. There we go. is that this is the marketing, right? And then this is the selling. So I want to know, I want to understand their marketing, what they're doing in their marketing to position, right? So the hook, themes, ideas. I want to know their promises, claims, benefits. I want to know, do they have a unique selling proposition? Do they have a unique mechanism? Remember, if we don't know what our competitors are doing, then how do we know how to position against that? How do we know how to differentiate if we don't know what competitors are saying, right? If we don't know, right? And what competitors are saying is ultimately what the marketplace is hearing, right? And so you heard me say, I want to bring something new. I want to bring something different. We're going to talk about that when we get to hooks and ideas in a bit. But right, I want to say something different. I want to bring something different to the market. I need to know what competitors are saying so that I know I've got something different. And then I want to understand their offer, because ultimately what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to put together a superior offer, an offer that is better than competitors, right? And so I didn't say cheaper, I said better, right? And so I need to know what it is that they are doing. And so that is competitors. Then with the product, we're going to look for very similar things. First of all, we're going to look to see, is there any kind of catalyst, like we talked about earlier, that is that makes this product, this approach, this, this system, this opportunity more valuable, more timely, more urgent? Is there anything going on with this product in the marketplace that the prospects are aware of that I can leverage in my copy? Is there a catalyst? Then I want to understand, right? We're going to talk about this. We're going to unpack these. I want to understand what's the hook, theme, marketing idea that we're going to roll with. What are the promises, claims, benefits that we could make? What is there a unique selling proposition? Likely not, but is there a unique benefit that we could offer? Is there a unique mechanism? And then what's the offer going to be, right? These are things that we need to understand up front, right? We need to understand up front. We need to make these decisions. You heard me say at the beginning of this section, this is research and decisions. These are part of the decisions. I'm going to show you the questions that we need to answer in just a second. These are decisions that we need to make before you write a single word of copy. Now, I want to unpack a couple of these a little bit more so you get the some of the nuances, right? I'm not going to fully unpack this. I'm not going to go into every single detail for you, because some of this carries over into marketing strategy, but I want to give you the stuff that is important to know from for a copywriting perspective. So let's talk a little bit about, you're going to hear me use the phrase primary promise. So oftentimes you will hear me use promise and benefits. Promise and benefits. I want you to think of promise as primary promise. And I want you to think of, right, we got two things. We got primary promise and benefits. And so what's the difference? Because ultimately they both could fall under the umbrella of benefits, things that improve the prospect's life, that alleviate their pain, things done to the prospect. But I want you to recognize that every marketing campaign, every piece of copy that you write in terms of a campaign has a primary promise. Primary promise is the chief result, outcome, or transformation, meaning it is the one overarching change, improvement, result that your prospect is looking for. So the difference between the primary promise, you need to understand this. You're going to see this carried over to tomorrow. What you need to understand is that the primary promise is the big overarching change. But from that big overarching change, and I'll give you an example in just a second, there will likely be a lot of smaller ancillary benefits that come with it. What I'm talking about here is what is the most valuable, most compelling, most sought after result that your prospect is looking to experience, that your product or service can deliver. So if we were talking about weight loss, if somebody was interested in losing, X amount of weight, 30 pounds of weight or whatever it is,